The unexpected inheritance. Ethan sat at his desk, staring blankly at the letter that had just arrived. It was an envelope marked with strange symbols he couldn't understand. His hand hesitated as he opened it, wondering what could be inside. As a man who lived a simple life, far from any alien worlds, the thought of receiving such an odd letter was unsettling. But curiosity pushed him to open it. Inside, the letter was written in plain English, though the origins of it made no sense at all. It was from a law firm on a distant planet, Vera Prime. It claimed that Ethan had inherited something, a mine on the planet, something called the Ancient Vault. The letter said he had a legal right to it, passed down to him by a relative he never knew existed. The letter also promised that the mine was worth unimaginable wealth, though it did not explain much further. "What is this?" Ethan muttered aloud, holding the paper in disbelief. The notion that he, a simple man from Earth, had inherited an ancient mine on an alien planet felt like something straight out of a science fiction story. He had no idea where Vera Prime even was, or who this mysterious relative could be. Ethan spent the next few hours researching. He found that Vera Prime was an abandoned world, left desolate after an ancient war between alien species. The idea of a mine, untouched for centuries, was both intriguing and unsettling. The letter also mentioned a sealed chamber deep within the mine, hidden for reasons that remained unclear. Despite his doubts, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play. The more he thought about it, the more it seemed like an adventure, a chance to change his life forever. The next morning, with a mixture of uncertainty and excitement, he boarded a ship that would take him to Vera Prime. As the ship launched into the vastness of space, Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. His life was about to change, but whether for the better or worse, he couldn't know. After several days of travel, Ethan finally arrived at the desolate world. The planet was a dull brown, covered with what seemed to be vast deserts and ancient ruins. The landscape was barren, with no signs of life in sight. Only the whisper of the wind and the crackle of static from his ship's comms system filled the air. Ethan landed near the coordinates given to him in the letter. As the ship's hatch opened, a cold gust of wind hit him. He wrapped his coat tighter around himself and stepped out into the unknown world. The mine, according to the letter, was a few miles away from the landing site. It was hidden deep in the planet's mountains, where no one had been in centuries. The journey to the mine was long and tiring, the terrain harsh and unforgiving. As Ethan trekked across the planet's rocky surface, he could feel a strange energy in the air, a tension, as if the planet itself was alive, watching him. He pressed on, driven by the mysterious inheritance and the unanswered questions that gnawed at him. When he finally reached the mine's entrance, it stood like a dark hole in the side of a mountain, covered with ancient markings and symbols. The entrance was nearly sealed, as if the mine had been purposely hidden from the world for a long time. The stone door was heavy, but with a forceful push, Ethan managed to move it. Inside, the mine was cold and damp, the walls lined with old alien technology. The deeper he ventured, the more the air seemed to thrum with energy. It was as if the place was alive with secrets, waiting to be uncovered. The mine had been abandoned for centuries, yet the strange energy still seemed to pulse within its walls. Ethan's heart raced as he walked deeper, following the faint glow of strange crystals embedded in the walls. Further he went, the more the mine seemed to stretch, as if it were far larger than he had expected. The walls of the mine were covered with alien writing that he couldn't understand. He guessed it might be the language of the long-lost species who once controlled the planet. Eventually, he reached a vast underground chamber, the air thick with dust. The faint blue glow of the crystals illuminated a large stone structure in the center of the room. It looked like an altar of sorts, ancient and worn by time, but there was something about it that gave him a sense of dread. Then, his eyes caught something unexpected. At the far end of the chamber, shackled to the wall, was a figure. It was a woman, unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. She had long, flowing silver hair, and her skin shimmered with a faint glow. Her eyes were closed and her chains were bound tightly to the wall. She seemed to be in some sort of deep slumber, yet there was an unmistakable energy radiating from her, powerful, mysterious. Ethan took a hesitant step forward, unsure of what to make of the woman. Who was she? How did she end up here, chained in an ancient mine? The closer he got, the more he could feel the strange power within her. It was as if she was calling out to him, though she made no sound. Suddenly, the air in the room seemed to crackle with tension. Ethan stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. His instincts told him to turn back, but something about the woman's presence compelled him to stay. What had he uncovered? What was the connection between this woman and the mine? And then, her eyes flickered open, glowing with an unnatural light. She looked directly at him, and for a moment, the entire world seemed to stop. "Help me," she whispered, her voice soft but full of urgency. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. What had he just stumbled upon? And more importantly, who was she? The mine held its secrets, but now, it seemed, Ethan was in the center of it all. The alien's curse, the air around E, then seemed to thicken as the woman's glowing eyes locked onto his. For a moment he felt paralyzed, as if the very presence of her was enough to steal the breath from his lungs. Her gaze was intense, not in a threatening way, but in a way that tugged at something deep within him. It was as if she could see every part of him, the fears, the doubts, the questions, and yet she did not judge. I can't help you," Ethan stammered, his voice breaking the heavy silence. He took a step back, suddenly aware of how vulnerable he was in this strange alien world. The woman's lips parted, but her words were soft, almost a whisper carried on the stale air of the mine. "You are my only hope," she said, her voice like a distant melody, both ancient and familiar. Ethan's head spun. What did she mean by hope? And why was she chained here in the first place? He looked around the chamber searching for answers, but all he found were the same cryptic symbols that covered the walls. There was no sign of the creatures or people who had imprisoned her, no trace of the civilization that had once inhabited this place. "I don't even know who you are," he said, though he didn't quite believe the words himself. A part of him knew that was no longer true. He had already seen too much, felt too much in her presence. He had to know more. The woman's eyes shimmered with an emotion he couldn't quite place. It was sadness, yes, but there was something more. Something that spoke of endless centuries of longing and isolation. "My name is Ealara," she said. "I was once a queen of a great empire, but my people betrayed me." Ethan leaned closer, his curiosity burning brighter than ever. Betrayed? How? By who? Elara's head dropped slightly, as if the memory weighed heavily on her. She closed her eyes and took a slow, measured breath before continuing. "Long ago, before your kind ever set foot in this galaxy, my people ruled over many worlds. We were known as the Sci-Fi. Our empire spanned the stars, and we were revered for our knowledge and power." She paused, her voice trembling slightly as the memories resurfaced. "But with power comes greed, and with greed, corruption. The people I trusted, the ones I loved, turned on me. They saw me as a threat to their power. They saw my strength as something to be feared." Ethan was captivated by her story, but something deep within him told him that this was only the beginning. There was more to this story than she was revealing, something that connected her past to this mine, to him. "Why were you chained here?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What is this place?" Elara's eyes flickered with something akin to pain. She seemed to hesitate before she spoke again, as though the truth she was about to reveal was something that might shatter whatever fragments of hope she still clung to. "This mine, this is no ordinary place," she began. "It is the heart of my empire's downfall. The Sci-Fi had discovered something here, something ancient, something powerful. The mine is built upon a vault that contains knowledge and technology beyond anything your people have ever seen. But it is not just a vault, it is a prison that holds the secret to my people's greatest mistake. Ethan's mind raced. A prison? What do you mean? What secret? Aelara's gaze turned distant, as if she could see a time long past, beyond the walls of the mine and into the depths of history. The vault contains a weapon, an ancient weapon that was meant to protect the Sci-Fi, but it was too powerful, too dangerous. So my people sealed it away, and they sealed me with it. Ethan took a step closer, his heart pounding in his chest. You're saying you were imprisoned here to guard this weapon? Aelara nodded. I was the last of my kind, the only one who could keep the vault sealed. My chains are not just to imprison me. They are to ensure that no one, not even myself, can access the weapon within. The curse that binds me here is part of the mine's design. I cannot leave, and neither can anyone else who might seek to awaken what is hidden below. Ethan's mind was a whirlwind. He had come here thinking he was merely a man who had inherited an ancient mine, a chance to make a fortune. But what he had uncovered was something far more dangerous, far more important than he could have ever imagined. Why didn't you tell me all of this sooner? He asked, his voice tinged with frustration. I had no choice, Aelara replied, her voice heavy with sorrow. I had to be certain. I couldn't risk you unlocking the vault until I was sure of your intentions. The power within this place is not just physical, it is spiritual. The wrong person could awaken it, and the consequences would be catastrophic. Ethan's thoughts were racing. He understood now that this was no ordinary mine, no simple inheritance. He was standing on the precipice of something far greater, something that could change the fate of entire worlds, and he had no idea whether he was strong enough to control it, or if he even wanted to. What do we do now? He asked, his voice barely audible. Aelara's eyes glowed faintly as she looked at him, the weight of centuries of suffering reflected in her gaze. You're the only one who can help me, Ethan. You must decide. Will you release me from this prison, or will you walk away and leave the curse to linger for another 1,000 years? Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Ethan's heart raced. Whatever choice he made, there was no turning back. The mine's secrets were now his to uncover, and the fate of not just Aelara, but of many worlds, rested in his hands. And as the air in the mine seemed to hum with ancient power, Ethan knew that the adventure he had stumbled into was far more than he had ever bargained for. The awakening. The moment Ethan touched Aelara's chains, a surge of energy jolted through the mine, as if the very walls had come alive. It was an electric shock that raced up his arm, an indescribable force that made his head spin. For an instant, he felt a pull, an unexplainable connection to her, as though the two of them shared a single heartbeat. The chains around Aelara's wrists cracked, the ancient metal groaning as if it had not been disturbed in millennia. Ethan stepped back, heart racing as the light in the mine flickered and dimmed, then flared brightly. The entire chamber seemed to hum with power, and Aelara's eyes snapped open, glowing with a vivid, almost unnatural light. Ethan gasped, stumbling backward as her gaze fixed on him. There was a fire in her eyes now, an intensity that hadn't been there before. Her long silver hair, which had once seemed motionless, began to shimmer with an ethereal glow, and the air around her crackled with strange energy. I remember, Aelara whispered, her voice barely audible at first, but growing stronger as the moments passed. I remember it all. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't just an alien waking up from a long sleep. This was something far deeper, far more powerful. He didn't know whether to be terrified or amazed, but he knew one thing for sure. He was standing on the edge of something ancient, something dangerous. Aelara slowly rose to her feet, her chains now shattered on the ground. But she didn't seem weak or fragile as Ethan might have imagined. Instead, she stood with a strength that radiated from her every movement. She wasn't just an alien. She was a queen, a being of unimaginable power, and now she was free. "You freed me," she said. Her voice filled with a quiet reverence. "I owe you my life." Ethan could only stare, unsure of what to say. "But why are you here?" he asked. "What is this place? Why were you chained?" Elara's eyes narrowed, the memories of her past flooding back like a torrent. "This mine is not just a place of power. It is the prison of an ancient curse. The Sci-Fi, my people, built this mine to hide a weapon so powerful that it could reshape the universe. But it was too much for them to control. It was sealed away by my ancestors, and I, as the last of my bloodline, was tasked with guarding it." Ethan's pulse quickened. A weapon? A weapon that could change the fate of the galaxy? His mind struggled to process the weight of her words. "But why you? Why were you chosen to guard it?" "I was the only one who could," Elara replied, her voice cold with regret. "I was the last of the Sci-Fi, and I was bound by the curse to this place. Only my blood could keep the vault sealed. If anyone else tried to open it, the power inside would consume them." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Ethan felt a chill crawl down his spine. "And what happens now? What happens if someone awakens the vault?" Elara's gaze turned somber, her eyes losing their warmth. "The weapon inside is a force unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. It was meant to protect my people, but in the wrong hands, it could destroy entire worlds. The Sci-Fi made a terrible mistake, sealing that power away in a place that could never be found. But now that you've unlocked it..." Ethan swallowed hard. He had opened the mine, but he never expected it to lead to this. He never thought his simple curiosity would unearth something so catastrophic. "I didn't know," he muttered, guilt gnawing at him. "I didn't realize what I was unlocking. I thought I was just here to claim an inheritance." Elara's expressed ion softened and she stepped closer to him, her presence overwhelming. "You didn't know. But now that you've awakened me, you are the only one who can stop this. The weapon inside the vault can only be accessed by those with Sci-Fi blood, but if it falls into the hands of someone else, someone who doesn't understand its power, it will be the end of everything." Ethan took a deep breath. The weight of the situation hit him all at once. The discovery of the mine had seemed like an adventure at first, but now it was something far more serious. He wasn't just a man on a quest for riches. He was the only one who could stop a disaster from unfolding. "I don't know what to do," Ethan admitted. "This is all too much. I didn't come here looking for this." Elara's gaze softened as she reached out, placing a hand gently on his arm. "You may not have come looking for it, but you are here now. The fate of the galaxy is tied to your actions, and I cannot face this alone. Together, we can prevent the destruction that is coming." Ethan felt the gravity of her words, but there was something else. Something he hadn't fully understood until now. There was a bond between them, something that went beyond fate and duty. It was as though their destinies had been intertwined the moment he stepped into the mine. As he looked into Elara's eyes, he felt a surge of determination. He couldn't walk away from this. There was no turning back now. The weight of the universe seemed to rest on his shoulders, but he wasn't alone. Elara was with him, and together they might just have a chance to save everything. "All right," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "What do we do now?" Elara nodded, her gaze turning toward the heart of the mine. "We must find the vault, Ethan. The weapon inside is the key, and we must ensure it never falls into the wrong hands." The mine echoed with an ominous hum as they turned toward the unknown, their path set before them. The ancient power was stirring beneath their feet, and with it, the fate of the galaxy rested on the choices they made in the coming hours. And for Ethan, there was no turning back. The alien merchant's wrath. The mine was silent, save for the distant hum of energy resonating deep within its walls. Elara and Ethan stood at the edge of the chamber, their gazes fixed on the glowing symbols that lined the vault's entrance. The atmosphere felt thick with tension, and the weight of their task hung heavily over them. Every step they took seemed to make the ground beneath their feet tremble with the power that lay dormant. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. They had awoken the vault's secrets, and now the universe was closing in on them. They weren't alone, not by a long shot. As Aelara had warned, there were others out there who knew of the mine's existence, and they would stop at nothing to claim the weapon within. "We don't have much time," Aelara said, her voice laced with urgency. Her eyes, once full of hope, now reflected the same fear that gnawed at Ethan's chest. "The merchant will come for us. He always does." Ethan looked at her, confusion written on his face. "The merchant? Who is he?" Alara's eyes darkened as she recalled the name, as though it left a bitter taste on her tongue. "He is the leader of a ruthless trade syndicate, the Zalari Consortium. They deal in everything, from weapons to slaves to forbidden technology, and they know the power of the mine. If he finds out what we've uncovered, he will destroy everything to claim it." Ethan's heart raced. The threat of the merchant was no longer just a story. It was a looming reality. The fact that someone as dangerous as this alien merchant was hunting them made the mine's secrets feel more like a curse than a blessing. He had no idea what he had gotten himself into. "How do we stop him?" Ethan asked, his voice tight. Aelara's expression hardened, her gaze steely with determination. "We can't stop him by force. The Zalari are too powerful, but we can outsmart him. The mine is a labyrinth, and its secrets are hidden beneath layers of ancient puzzles. He won't be able to find the weapon unless we let him." Ethan didn't feel reassured. Aelara's confidence was admirable, but the prospect of outwitting a galactic syndicate felt like a battle he wasn't prepared for. Still, he knew one thing. He couldn't let the merchant get his hands on whatever power lay below. "We have to act fast," Ethan said. "But what exactly are we looking for? What's in the vault?" Aelara's eyes flickered with a strange mix of fear and resolve. "The weapon inside is called the Heart of Eternity. It is a living force, capable of reshaping reality itself. It was created by my people to protect the Sci-Fi Empire. But it was too dangerous. Once unleashed, it will bend the very fabric of space and time. Whoever controls it has the power to become a god." A cold shiver ran down Ethan's spine. A weapon that could reshape reality? It sounded like something from a nightmare. The idea that such power existed was terrifying, and he now understood why Aelara had been bound to the mine. No one should have access to it, and yet here they were, standing on the threshold of disaster. "Why didn't you just destroy it?" Ethan asked. "Why didn't your people destroy it when they sealed it away?" Aelara's face tightened, her expression almost unreadable. "We tried, but the Heart of Eternity is not something that can be destroyed. It can only be sealed. The Sci-Fi thought they could contain it, but they failed. And now, I am the last one who can keep it hidden. But I can't do it alone." Before Ethan could respond, a faint sound echoed in the distance, a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the stone walls. His instincts kicked in, and he felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. Something was wrong. Aelara's eyes darted toward the tunnel's entrance, her face paling. "He's here," she whispered, barely audible. "The merchant has arrived." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He didn't need to ask who he was. Aelara's fear was enough to tell him everything he needed to know. The alien merchant, the ruthless leader of the Zalari Consortium, had finally found them. The rumble grew louder, and a figure emerged from the shadows at the entrance of the chamber. It was a tall, imposing alien, clad in dark armor that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. His eyes glowed with a faint, eerie light, and his presence seemed to distort the very air around him. He radiated power, confidence, and a chilling cruelty that made Ethan's blood run cold. "I've been looking for you, Aelara." The merchant's voice boomed, smooth and cold, like the sound of metal scraping against stone. "And I see you've brought a friend." Ethan stepped back instinctively, his hand reaching for the blaster at his side. The merchant smiled, a wicked grin that sent shivers down his spine. "You think you can hide from me?" the merchant continued, his voice dripping with malice. "I've known about the heart of eternity for centuries. Your little game of hiding it was cute, but ultimately pointless. And now, I've found you." Aelara stepped in front of Ethan, her posture proud and unyielding despite the fear in her eyes. "You won't have it, merchant," she said, her voice steady but laced with a fierce resolve. "You will never control it." The merchant's smile widened. "We'll see about that, won't we?" he sneered, his eyes flicking toward Ethan. "It seems the human has more use to me than I thought. You both have no idea what you're up against. But don't worry, I'll make sure to show you the true cost of your ignorance." The tension in the room thickened, and Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. He knew they were outmatched. Aelara's power was formidable, but this merchant had the resources of an entire syndicate at his disposal. The fate of the mine, the weapon, and their very lives now rested in their ability to outwit this merciless figure. And in that moment, as the merchant's shadow loomed over them, Ethan realized that the real battle had just begun. The betrayal. The atmosphere in the mine had shifted. Gone was the quiet hum of the ancient power, replaced by a tense stillness that seemed to suffocate the air. Ethan and Aelara stood side by side, eyes fixed on the alien merchant who loomed before them, his presence a dark cloud that threatened to engulf everything they had fought for. His confidence was chilling, and his eyes burned with an intensity that said he would not leave without what he came for. "You can't hide it forever, Aelara," the merchant said, his voice cold, cutting through the silence. "The heart of eternity will be mine, and there's nothing you or this human can do to stop me." Aelara's jaw tightened, her hands trembling slightly, but she stood firm. "You underestimate us, Zelor," she spat, her voice as sharp as a blade. "I'll never let you take it. Not now. Not ever." The merchant's smirk deepened, and he took a slow, deliberate step forward. His men, cloaked in shadow, spread out behind him, ready for whatever may come. It was clear that he wasn't here to negotiate. This was the endgame. Ethan could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, a suffocating pressure that threatened to crush any hope. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them shook. A low rumble reverberated through the walls of the mine, and the faint light from the glowing crystals flickered erratically. Ethan's eyes darted to the ceiling, his heart hammering in his chest. Something was wrong, something that wasn't supposed to happen. Before anyone could react, a figure emerged from the shadows, a figure Ethan had never expected to see. His blood ran cold as he saw who it was. Marcus. "Marcus?" Ethan gasped, his voice filled with disbelief. "What the hell are you doing here?" The man standing before them wasn't a stranger. He was someone Ethan had trusted. Marcus had been a contact of his, a friend from the outside world, someone who had helped him gather information about the mine. Ethan had thought of him as an ally, a valuable resource for his journey. But now, seeing Marcus step out from the shadows, standing side by side with the merchant's men, the truth hit Ethan like a blow to the chest. Marcus's face was unreadable, his usual warmth replaced by cold calculation. "I should have known," Ethan muttered, his voice shaking with the sudden realization. "You were with him all along." Marcus gave a tight, humorless smile. "It's nothing personal, Ethan, but I'm not in the business of losing to the likes of you." The betrayal cut deeper than anything Ethan had felt before. Marcus wasn't just an ally. He was the one person Ethan had trusted in this mess. And now, standing here with the very people who had hunted them, it became clear that Marcus had never been on their side. Aelara's eyes narrowed and her lips curled in disgust. "So, it was you who betrayed us?" she said, her voice low, but filled with venom. "You knew about the weapon, didn't you? You knew the entire time, and yet you let us lead you to it." Marcus didn't flinch, his gaze fixed on Ethan with an unsettling calm. "I knew exactly what I was getting into, Aelara," he said, his words laced with a bitterness that made Ethan's stomach churn. The heart of eternity isn't just a weapon, it's an opportunity. You think you're the only one who knows its power? You think you're the only one who can control it? Ethan's fists clenched. You sold us out. All this time you were working for him, weren't you? Marcus nodded slowly, the edge of a smile tugging at his lips. I wasn't about to let you have it all. You didn't think a simple contact like me would just stumble into something so valuable, did you? The Elari Consortium offered me a deal I couldn't refuse. The power that's locked away in this mine. It's worth more than anything we've ever imagined. And now it's mine to claim. Aelara took a step forward, her fury visible in every tense line of her body. You don't understand, she spat. The weapon isn't something you can control. It doesn't belong to anyone. If you release it, you'll doom us all. It will consume you, just like it did my people. Marcus's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. You think I'm afraid of a little power? He sneered. The Zalari Consortium has the resources to tame anything, including whatever horrors are locked inside that vault. And now, thanks to your little partnership with the human, we're about to unlock it. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, the weight of the betrayal settling in like a stone in his stomach. The person he had trusted had sold him out, had led him into a trap, and now they were standing on the edge of a precipice, on the brink of unleashing something that could destroy everything. Why? Ethan asked, his voice a hollow whisper. Why betray me, Marcus? You didn't have to do this. Marcus's eyes glinted with a cruel light. Because I knew you wouldn't have the guts to do what was necessary. You've always been the idealist, Ethan. Always thinking about right and wrong. Me? I see the bigger picture. The universe is about survival, and this is my chance to be on top. The truth of it hit Ethan like a fist. Marcus had never been an ally. He had been a pawn, using Ethan to get what he wanted. The mine, the heart of eternity. It had all been a means to an end. And now, it was all slipping through his fingers. As the realization settled in, the ground trembled again, stronger this time. The rumble was unmistakable. It was coming from deeper within the mine, the vault. The weapon was awakening, responding to the greed that had finally reached it. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. We have to stop him, Aelara whispered urgently. We can't let him release that. The weapon. Ethan's mind raced. The enemy was already here, and Marcus had played him like a fool. But it wasn't too late. There was still a chance to stop this madness, to make sure the weapon remained sealed. He looked at Aelara, and without saying another word, they made their move. The chamber was now a battleground where betrayal, ambition, and an ancient power all collided. The stakes had never been higher. The war for the heart of eternity had just begun, the final showdown. The vibrations in the mind deepened, like the heartbeat of an ancient beast awakening from centuries of slumber. Every step Ethan took felt heavier, as if the very walls of the mine were pushing back against him. The air was thick with tension, each breath harder to take as the truth of their situation settled in. The weapon was stirring, and they were running out of time. Aelara stood beside him, her posture rigid with determination, her glowing eyes never leaving the path ahead. The betrayal by Marcus had shaken her, but she had no time to dwell on it. There was a war to win, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The heart of eternity, an ancient power capable of reshaping the very fabric of existence, was just beyond the vault door. And Marcus, he had the key. Marcus won't get away with this, Aelara said, her voice low but laced with an unwavering resolve. We'll stop him, no matter what it takes. Ethan nodded, though doubt gnawed at him. They were outnumbered. They were up against not just Marcus, but an entire mercenary army from the Zalari Consortium. Their resources were vast, and they had no idea how far Marcus would go to unlock the weapon. But one thing was certain. If they failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. As they neared the vault's entrance, a sudden blast echoed through the mine. The walls shook, sending a spray of dust and debris into the air. Ethan and Alara dove full, or cover, instinctively reaching for their weapons. The explosion had come from behind them, a calculated move. "Marcus," Alara muttered, gritting her teeth. "He's trying to force his way in." They sprinted forward, but the path was blocked by a force field, shimmering and pulsing with an unnatural energy. Alara's eyes flashed, her fingers moving in a series of complex motions as she channeled the ancient power coursing through her veins. The field flickered, then blinked out of existence, but the cost was clear. Alara's strength was waning. Ethan glanced at her, concern flashing in his eyes. "Are you all right?" "I'll be fine," she said, though her voice was strained. "But we have no time to waste. The vault is right ahead." They reached the entrance, only to find Marcus waiting for them. His figure was silhouetted against the dim light of the chamber, his eyes glowing with cold anticipation. Behind him stood his mercenaries, armed and ready. "You made it just in time," Marcus said, his voice smooth and full of mockery. "But you're too late." Alara's eyes narrowed. "You won't get away with this." Marcus smiled, a twisted grin spreading across his face. "You still don't understand, do you? The heart of eternity is mine. I've spent years planning this. You were just pawns in a much bigger game." He raised a hand, and a powerful wave of energy pulsed through the air, knocking Ethan and Alara back. Ethan's head spun as the blast sent him crashing to the ground. His vision blurred for a moment, but he quickly pushed himself up, his fingers wrapping around the handle of his blaster. Alara was already on her feet, her glowing form now surrounded by a shimmering aura of energy. "You think you can just walk away with it?" Alara shouted, her voice fierce as she summoned her power. The ground beneath them trembled, and a series of bright sparks flared in the air as her energy collided with Marcus's. For a moment, it seemed like they were evenly matched. Marcus's technology was able, but Alara's ancient power was something that even he couldn't fully understand. But Marcus wasn't alone. His mercenaries moved in, surrounding them. Ethan felt the weight of the situation closing in on him. His heart pounded in his chest as the realization hit him. They were outmatched, outnumbered, and trapped in a mine filled with untold power. And yet, he wasn't ready to give up. He couldn't. Not when everything was on the line. "You won't take it," Ethan said, his voice unwavering despite the chaos around him. "I won't let you." Marcus's eyes flickered with irritation. "You think you can stop me? You're nothing but a human." Ethan didn't flinch. Instead, he fired. The shot was precise, hitting one of the mercenaries square in the chest. The man crumpled to the ground and the others hesitated for just a moment, enough time for Ethan to rush forward. The battle had begun in earnest. Alara was in the thick of it, her energy clashing against Marcus's, the vault door behind them glowing with an ominous light. The weapon inside, the heart of eternity, was calling out, a dark pulse that echoed through the mine. As the fight raged on, Ethan felt a deep sense of purpose settle within him. This wasn't just about survival. This was about stopping the destruction of everything they held dear. The weapon couldn't fall into Marcus's hands. They couldn't let the heart of eternity awaken to a galaxy on the brink of chaos. In the heat of the battle, Ethan caught a glimpse of the vault's control panel, the final piece of the puzzle. He didn't hesitate. With a surge of adrenaline, he broke away from the fight and ran for it, dodging blasts and leaping over debris. His fingers flew over the ancient interface, desperate to unlock it before Marcus could. But just as he reached the panel, a sharp cry rang out. Alara's voice, strained and full of pain, cut through the chaos. "Ethan." His heart skipped a beat as he turned to see her struggling against Marcus, his power overwhelming hers. No, this couldn't happen. Not like this. Without thinking, Ethan sprinted back toward them, his heart pounding in his chest. He raised his blaster and fired, aiming directly at Marcus's weapon. The shot struck true, and Marcus faltered, momentarily stunned. Alara seized the opportunity. With a cry of defiance, she unleashed her full power, sending a surge of energy so powerful it shook the very foundation of the mine. The ground cracked open beneath Marcus's feet, and he was thrown back, crashing into the walls. But the vault door remained. The heart of eternity was still within reach. As Ethan and Aelara rushed toward the final barrier, the ground trembled beneath them again. This time, it wasn't the mind's energy. It was something else. Something far more dangerous. The weapon was awakening. A new beginning. The mind quaked violently, as if the planet itself was waking from an ancient slumber. Ethan's chest tightened with every tremor that ran through the stone, his heartbeat quickening in sync with the rising power of the heart of eternity. The vault doors loomed ahead, glowing with an eerie, pulsating light, as if the weapon within was now aware of the turmoil unfolding above it. Aelara stood beside him, her energy flickering like a dying flame, her strength almost spent. Her body trembled with the weight of the battle they had just fought, but her eyes, those glowing, otherworldly eyes, were fixed on the vault, unwavering. "We're out of time," she said, her voice strained but determined. "The heart of eternity is waking. If we don't stop it now, it will be too late." Ethan turned to face her, his mind racing. Every instinct in him screamed to keep fighting, to keep pushing against the seemingly impossible odds. But now, standing at the precipice of disaster, he realized that the true enemy wasn't just the merchant or even the mercenaries. It was the weapon, the ancient force that had been sealed away for millennia. It wasn't just a tool of destruction. It was an entity in its own right, bound by time, space, and power. "We can still stop it," Ethan said, his voice more steady than he felt. "We have to." Aelara nodded, her face etched with a deep sadness, as if she understood the gravity of their actions. She placed a hand on the vault's control panel, her fingers trembling as they hovered above the ancient interface. The symbols on the panel flickered, resonating with a strange energy that seemed to call to her. "I am the last of my people," Aelara said softly, her voice filled with an ancient sorrow. "I was bound to this mine for a reason, to protect the heart of eternity. But now, it is not just my fate that is tied to it. The galaxy is at the mercy of the choices we make here." Ethan didn't know how to respond. He had always thought of power as something tangible, something that could be controlled, manipulated. But what they were dealing with here was something beyond comprehension. The heart of eternity wasn't just a weapon. It was a living force, a force that could warp the very fabric of reality itself, and if they didn't act, it would consume everything. Aelara's fingers brushed against the control panel, and the vault doors began to open. But it wasn't just the door that moved. The entire chamber seemed to shift, the walls groaning as they adjusted to the awakening power. The air became thick with static, crackling with the energy of something ancient, something terrifying. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he stepped closer, his hand reaching for Aelara's. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice tight with fear. "We don't know what will happen if we open it. It could destroy everything." Aelara turned to him, her eyes softening for a moment as she looked into his eyes. "I've spent centuries trying to keep this sealed. But now, it's no longer about contagion. It's about understanding, the weapon. It's not just power, it's a part of the universe itself, a force that could either save or destroy everything. And it is up to us to decide which it will be." The vault doors finally parted with a deafening, reverberating sound, and Ethan felt the ground tremble beneath his feet. A wave of energy surged outward, and in the center of the vault stood a glowing, pulsating core, a sphere of light that seemed to breathe, as if alive. The heart of eternity. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The sphere shimmered with an intense, radiant light, its power unlike anything he had ever felt. It was as if the very essence of creation itself was held within it, and yet there was a darkness beneath that light, a hunger, a coldness that threatened to consume everything. Aelara stepped forward, her body glowing with the last remnants of her strength. She raised her hand, and the light from the sphere intensified, flooding the chamber with an almost blinding radiance. Ethan shielded his eyes, but he could feel it. The pull of the heart of eternity. It called to him, like a whisper in his mind, promising power beyond imagination. We must act quickly. Aelara's voice broke through the hum of energy. The heart will not wait for us to decide. Once it fully awakens, it will choose its path, and it will consume everything in its wake. Ethan's mind raced. This was it, the final choice. They could take the heart, harness its power, and rule the galaxy, or they could destroy it, sealing it away once more, perhaps for good. But doing so would come at a cost. They would have to sacrifice their chance at ever understanding its true potential. Ethan turned to Aelara, seeing the weight of the decision in her eyes. They were standing at the crossroads of the universe's fate. And in that moment, something clicked inside him. He understood. The heart of eternity wasn't a weapon to be controlled. It meant to be harnessed or bent to anyone's will. It was a force that existed beyond the boundaries of human or alien power. Aelara nodded, as if she could read his thoughts. "We must destroy it," she whispered. "It is the only way." Ethan didn't hesitate. Together they moved toward the sphere, their hands reaching out in unison. As they touched the heart of eternity, a surge of energy exploded from it, like a storm breaking free from the sky. The power was overwhelming, tearing at the very fabric of their reality. For a moment, everything went dark. When Ethan opened his eyes, he found himself standing outside the mine, the destruction they had caused echoing in the distance. The air was clear, the tension gone, and the mine, the heart of eternity, was no more. Aelara stood beside him, her form now shimmering with a faint, ethereal glow. She was different, changed, as if the very act of destroying the heart had transformed her, and perhaps the universe itself. The world around them was quiet, but there was a sense of peace in the stillness. Ethan looked at Aelara, a sense of finality settling over him. "Is it over?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Aelara nodded slowly. "Yes, it's over. The heart is gone, and the galaxy is safe. But there is still much to rebuild, much to understand. The future, it's ours to shape." As they stood together, looking out over the quiet landscape, Ethan realized that the universe was no longer just a vast, mysterious place. It was a place of choices that shaped the course of their future. And as he looked at Aelara, knowing the bond they shared could never be broken, he understood that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was waiting for them, and together, they would face whatever came next, with the knowledge that sometimes the greatest power was in the decisions we make, not the forces we control. The end. Enjoyed the story? Like it and subscribe for more.